Helen is going to, among other things, I'm sure, just share with us some of the assistive technology solutions, a wee bit of a case study. So without any further ado, Helen, welcome. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Right, what we're going to be covering today is some of the more practical aspects around assistive technology and how we embed workplace adjustment processes within organizations. So if we could just go to the next slide, please, Kieran. Okay, so just a bit of background about Microlink. So we've been about since 1992, nearly 30 years now, and I've been there for 20 of them so far. We have supported over 500,000 people within the workplace and education with a range of disabilities, neurodiversity, musculoskeletal conditions. We can basically support anything around disability in the workplace. The company has kind of grown. We're trying to embed the UK models of disability around the world, which is proving to be a challenge, but it's something that we're really passionate about doing. The UK Equality Act is fantastic, and we really want to kind of spread that out. So at the moment, we're working within the USA, within South Africa, and the Middle East, and parts of Europe as well. So with this experience that we've got, that we've helped all of these people, we have built up a massive repository of data for pre-adjustment and post-adjustment. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Kieran. Thanks. So I think one of the first things that we wanted to touch on here is about trust in the workforce and how important it is to trust in your workforce and not have people prove that they have a disability. Okay, so I think that within any company that these kind of 4 things are really, really important. So the workplace adjustment process, I'm going to go into in some detail in the next slides. Disability Confident is a fantastic scheme. We are helping people to work through Disability Confident to become disability confident leaders. And also we wanted to touch a bit on the health and safety and compliance, especially working from home. I know Jen mentioned some things in the previous presentation. One of the things that we found that is really useful to do is we provide DSE and PAT testing and health and safety guidance to people working from home to make sure they're set up correctly. You know, disability and workplace adjustments haven't disappeared in this strange pandemic time that we're in, and people do still need the help and support within the home environment. So one of the things I wanted to do, if you could just move on to the next slide, Kieran. Thank you. So what you're looking at now, this is what we call the chaos diagram. And this is a process flow that I drew out many years ago when I was working with a company. And since then, it's kind of proven to be very similar in a lot of organizations before they've got a workplace adjustment program in place. And the challenge for an employee and a line manager to navigate through this is really, really difficult. So when an employee has got a need, the first thing we need to kind of establish is where do they go to for help? In each organization, it can be different. It can be towards a line manager, towards the HR department, towards a workplace adjustment process owner, towards health and safety, or more commonly, companies are saying, we don't know where somebody goes. There's no direct route in for the employee to get support quickly and easily. And once somebody has navigated through to get support, then the fun and games start with getting somebody assessed, and after the assessment is produced, a full workplace adjustment report is presented to the employee, but the real key is what happens next. Often it's involving many stakeholders. So if you have an employee with, say, dyslexia and osteoarthritis, the employee has to navigate through a lot of hurdles, both within the health and safety teams, the IT teams, the procurement teams, the facilities management teams, and that tends to be where the challenge is around workplace adjustments. It's what happens after the assessment. What we try and do is ensure that employees are just provided one assessment that covers everything. What you don't want is somebody to be going one way for a dyslexia assessment and one way for an ergonomic assessment. You really want to have it all done in one assessment. If you're using Access to Work, which a lot of companies do, from our side of the fence, it can prove to be a challenge for large organizations, And that's often to do with the compatibility of assistive technology within the company infrastructure. Not everything that is assessed by Access to Work can actually work in practice within an organization. And I think that that is the real challenge for companies. And the procurement people, they've never heard of some of this assistive technology before. So it's, where do they buy it from? What is it? The IT people have to then kind of work through a series of hoops to get things installed and to get things working for people. And you can then hit other hurdles, which one of the big things Microlink's been working on with a lot of organizations where they've upgraded to Windows 10 is trying to ensure that that upgrade doesn't then knock off people with assistive technology and with assistive software across the network, which unfortunately it can do, especially for employees with visual impairment. So one of the things that we do work really closely with organizations on is around IT and around making sure that the products that are assessed for are actually compatible with an organization. And I'll talk you through the process that we use in a second. Often this kind of chaos process can take 3 to 9 months, 6 months average, for an employee to kind of start from having a need, having a requirement, to getting through and getting that requirement in place and getting them trained and getting everything embedded and everything working correctly. And at Microlink, what we want to do is get that shortened down. Our average kind of timeline for an employee to go from referral to review is often 14 days or less. So as people have sort of mentioned in previous presentations, not all of these adjustments are complicated, not all of them are expensive, but you do need somebody to coordinate and a proper process in place that can kind of work through this chaos diagram and ensure people are getting what they need and what they need quickly. One of the other challenges around workplace adjustments is, before a process becomes embedded in a company, it's a real hidden cost. So the costs of workplace adjustments are kind of hidden within a health and safety budget for furniture, or they could be hidden within an HR budget or a facilities budget. So often organizations don't have a really good starting point. They don't know where they're at now. And because it's embedded in a lot of different areas of the business, there's no real visibility of any data. So you can't often tell how long an average case is taking from start to finish, or how much an average case is costing. So that's something that we really feel strongly about, that the more data, the better for organizations. If we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we launched a case study with Lloyds Banking Group many moons ago. It was presented at the House of Lords, and we're going to go through some of the real learning lessons that we've learned through that case study. But essentially, you can get some amazing results. And one of the things that was apparent shortly after the process was embedded was a massive reduction in absence, and that's a condition-related absence. So it's directly caused by the disability or condition. What we managed to do is reduce that by 76%, and within 1 year. So it was a massive reduction in condition-related absence. It totaled millions of pounds. And we also surveyed those people and found that it was directly due to the adjustments that were provided that absence was brought down. We also had a lot of data to show how cost effective having a proper workplace adjustment process is. It can bring the ad hoc costs down by 53%. We've got some of the stats there on screen. And we've also found that it really improves the line manager and colleague relationship. Essentially, what Microlink do is we sit in the middle of the entire process. So when an employee has a condition, they have a straight through process to refer to us. And within a day, our case managers are on the phone, talking to that person and understanding the impact of that condition in the workplace. That's really important, because it's for our case managers, when they're doing that kind of remote assessment work, you could almost argue that you can ignore the condition entirely. Something that could work for somebody who's had a stroke can also work for somebody who's got dyslexia. So we're actually kind of drilling down to the task level impacts that condition is causing. So can you listen while you're typing? Can you what problems do you have attending meetings? We capture about 600 fields of information during that conversation. Not that the person knows it, but we capture a lot of information. And it's not a scripted conversation. It's an open and honest conversation which inspires trust for that individual to disclose exactly what's going on in their workplace. Off the back of that consultation, we will then either recommend products and services right there and then, or we will get one of our wonderful assessors out on site. And those guys are pan disability assessors. So they obviously right now with COVID, we're actually doing a lot of this work remotely. There are some cases where we do need to be on site with an individual, and we do have full PEP for that kind of situation. But many of our assessments, our expert assessors, they're doing this kind of thing remotely right now. So when an assessor is discussing the case with the individual, they'll also engage with the line manager, because it's important that a line manager is taken through the process with the colleague. And we offer just as much support to a line manager to make sure they understand the condition, understand the disability, and understand how to support that person. After the assessment takes place, we then organise the supply of any products, any technology, any services as a result of that recommendation. And most importantly, we manage and review the success of those adjustments that have been provided. And that gives the company a lot of visibility about what's working. I think the review of adjustments is often something that doesn't take place all the time. It's people are given things, but then we don't often follow up to then check how well they're being used and how useful they are for the individual. If you could go to the next slide, Kira. All right, so this is a bit about the Lloyds Bank case study. So we started working with Lloyds back in 2011, and we launched, I guess, the kind of first workplace adjustment service in the UK. This has now gone on, and we provide this service to many organisations, both public and private sector. And some of the lessons we've learned from the case study start with getting it driven from the top. It's really important to have senior level executive support for a workplace adjustment programme. And we often help organisations to get that by helping them provide business cases on their own organisation. If we know the number of employees within an organisation, we can help to establish probably what that cost looks like to the organisation before a process is put in place. We also then really push the kind of getting data management information, providing visibility, because if you can't see it, you can't improve it. And I think the lack of data and the lack of information around what adjustments are in the workforce, who's got what, how well they're working, can really be a problem for organisations, especially, as I've already mentioned, when IT changes are made. You need to be able to find the people with the assistive software really quickly and make sure that you're in there before any changes get made, so you can support them through any upgrades or any issues that might arise. I think a process owner is massively important within an organisation, and it's a point of escalation, but also somebody who is joining the dots together within a company. And that person, within all of our organisations that we support, is really critical to kind of getting the messaging out within the company, and as a point of reference for the employees, so they know where to go.
Helen, I'm just going to give you a 1 minute call. Time
Thank you.
so quickly.
It does. I could waffle on for hours as well.
None of it is waffle. It's all brilliant.
So finally, the coordination of adjustments, and obviously the budget side of it. Although companies often talk about a centralized budget, it's not practical for a lot of companies. So we would promote centralized control of a budget, so that you can see where everything's going, where the money's going within an organization. If you can go to the next slide, Kieran, I'm going to speed up. So within working from home, this is obviously a topic that everyone's going to be discussing right now, but it is also important that we provide adjustments to those people working from home. Things haven't stopped. Disability hasn't stopped because of COVID. In fact, people need more support. We provide remote assessment for this, we provide equipment to the home, and we also provide coping strategies, and they're really fabulous things that can help people with neurodiverse conditions. So that's about how to manage your time, manage your day. It helps people with organisation, helps people with memory, really practical tools that somebody can use to improve their working day. If we can just go to the next one, Kieran. So there is a range of ergonomic and assistive hardware and software. We have about 4,000 products in our warehouse. So we can, and we've we've actually made solutions when something hasn't been available on the market. But a lot of them are kind of low cost areas. You don't need to head straight towards a chair for musculoskeletal. You can use inflatable lumbar supports. I think that there is a concern within organisations about things like chair envy and desk envy, but that needn't be a problem if you have a really well controlled and well governed process. Okay, if we can click to the next slide. I'm sure these slides are going to be available after this, but just to give you a brief run through of some of the technology. Some of the things that we're really heavily involved in right now are captioning. Captioning across multiple platforms is massively important. We also provide companies really great licensing options for things like Dragon and TextHelp and Claro Read. And we provide e-learning so companies can make better use out of the tools that are embedded within Microsoft and Apple iOS. And those kind of e-learning solutions, they're tailored around the individual. Oh, thank you, Chris J. We're tailored around the individual, and they're they provide a kind of a training session that can be bespoke. So we're promoting a lot of e-learning at the moment in the COVID situation. And if we could just go to the next slide, I'm trying to speed up desperately here. The other two things we've got here are mind mapping, which is a great visual way of organizing information and writing large documents for neurodiverse people. And finally, I want to touch on super reading, which is a fantastic course that we provide, which can actually increase your reading speed by a huge amount, 500%. And that is for people with dyslexia as well as those without. We have been trialing this within law firms who need to read contracts very, very quickly, and it produces massive results both in the education and in the workplace. So I just wanted to touch on some of the solutions there, and I think I'm done, Kate.
You have wonderfully. Now, unfortunately, we've got no time for questions, but can I say, Helen, as ever, you always trot through the most incredible solutions that are out there for people. And the two big takeaways for me is one, the necessity to review. You talked earlier about quite often adjustments are put in place and then nobody asks that individual as they're the right ones and are they working well. So that's a really important, again, a couple of private comments I got about the importance of that. So thank you for stressing that. And again, lovely comment from Chris, who just said, thank you. Apparently, Microlink, you helped him or her a few years back. So a very big thank you. So Helen, I'm hoping to hear around just for a few minutes. There might be some questions.
I will.
Through. So anybody who's got any extra questions or comments, but Helen, you and your colleagues' enthusiasm for this topic is just unheralded. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and your knowledge.
Thank you, Kate, for your kind words.
Yeah, a great organisation. It's worth, if you've got something on your mind around this, to reach out to colleagues, because they have a huge range of solutions there.